actually is? Meaning that, do you think that this extra dimension there that you talk about, is that always there and present, or is that something that we project onto reality?
Oh, yes. Robert Graves, the poet and the author of I, Claudius, when I went to Mallorca, it was in about 1970, and I'd been asked to write this book about the occult, and I'd only just started to think about it. And oddly enough, Graves, when I asked his advice about this, I said, "What do you think about the idea of writing about the occult?" Graves said, "Don't." Fortunately, I ignored him. But what I did discover by thinking enough about the occult was that we are thinking about a specific set of faculties. Now, Graves once said to me, poetry is written in the fifth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to get him to explain it better, but he was never able to explain it better than that. And since then, I've come to see, no, Graves was right. Poetry is written in the fifth dimension. You do achieve a certain state of mind that gets you beyond the ordinary states of the mind. And this is what we're talking about.
Absolutely, that's very interesting. And if we discuss a little bit generally about how the world have perceived some of the works that Crowley, Gurdjieff, and Blavatsky, among others, have done, it obviously depends on what side of the camp, so to speak, that you're looking at this at. But in most cases, these have been very vilified in our modern time. If you go around the internet and look at occult information and things, you pretty soon stumble over information which talk about how evil people like Crowley and Gurdjieff and Blavatsky were, and how their wickedness have seeped into the world today, so to speak. And why do you think that these people today are still the source, so to speak, for many people's projection of who is evil and who is out there in terms of the occult? Are people simply afraid of the occult and what some of these people were experimenting in and discovering, or is there something else behind that? What do you think, Colin?
Well, no. I mean, it is true, for example, that Crowley was a pretty bad man.
Yeah.
He's the only person about whom I've written a book that I would not have wanted to know, because he really was rather a nasty man in many ways. He knew a lot about magic, but Gurdjieff, on the other hand, it seems to me was a white magician. He was also a magician, but he wasn't bad in the same way that Crowley was. So it does seem to me that you must distinguish. There are some people who simply have this bad aspect. Don't forget, I'm also extremely interested in criminology. Many of my books have been about crime and criminology, and this is because I'm very interested in this dark side of human nature and in the evil side, because I feel that, this is the only way that we're going to learn real control over our minds, over our consciousness. And
how do you see that this dark side of human nature is manifested in the world today? Is it solely within all of us, within oneself, or do you see that it has manifested itself on the outside as well? Because when you bring up the fact that you're interested in crime, I come from a conspiratorial point of view myself, and I see that many of the criminals have seemed to have taken hold of the whole planet, if you ask me. Don't know what your take is on that, Colin.
Well, I don't know. I don't come from a conspiratorial point of view. It is true, though, that a number of criminals do seem to have achieved extraordinary power. But I don't feel there's any conspiracy involved in this. To begin with, I've always had a very strong feeling that the forces of good are so powerful that they do tend to even out the problems. So this is the reason that I remain basically very much an optimist.
Yeah.
when I talk about my ideas in general, people sometimes say, "My God, you're optimistic," and it's true, I am, and I'm optimistic simply because when I started off thinking about these problems in my teens, I thought, how does one think one's way through to real insight? And little by little, I think I succeeded in doing it. You see, I'm a scientist. I was born with a natural interest in science and mathematics. And all that I've done is to apply my scientific intellect, my logical intellect, to this problem of what human life is all about. H.G. Wells once wrote a book called What Should We Do With Our Lives? Now, if everybody thought every morning of that particular question, and far more people wrote answers to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I think we'd really begin to change things.
Well, exactly, absolutely, because again, it's all about questioning our behavior and what we're doing. And I ask this question almost every day. I try to as well. The question of what are we working for in that sense? What is the ultimate goal of humanity right now? Is it to build rockets, to go into space and to explore, or is it just to because these wheels of society are turning and turning all the time, and everyone is having a job which is in most cases a service to someone else on the planet, and so the question becomes, who is at the top of that hierarchy, so to speak? Who are we all working for? Which one has the most important job? And overall, where do you see things are going? What do you see as the purpose then of humanity, Colin? Is it to explore and expand and be of the scientific mind and try to investigate the universe, or what do you see the point is?
The point is, in a way, to get a real feeling, a sense of the meaning of that question, what should we do with our lives? I think once we've got that sense that there is a way of living that is far more meaningful than the way most of us live at the moment, then already you've changed. You've begun to change things. You see, as I get older, one of the things I notice, obviously, is that old friends tend to die. And you find yourself thinking, what is necessary to keep on going, to keep on developing? And I've got a feeling that the answer is what I've just said to you. That obsession with the notion, what should we do with our lives?
Yeah. It's very simple in that way then. And maybe that's why we also fail to do it, because as it usually is, it's so plain that we fail to recognize it. We fail to see it because it's so obvious. If you know what I mean.
Yep. Yes, I'm absolutely sure of that. You see, I've always all my life wanted to be able to spend all my days working on ideas. It's the only thing that seems to me to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
And, here I am, at nearly 79, still spending every day thinking about ideas.
Yeah.
When I was quite young, what I wanted mainly was to be able to stop working for the rest of society, because I got sick of being forced to work, for 8 or 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
Simply in order to make a living.
Yeah.
I wanted to be free. Well, when I was 24, I was lucky enough to publish that first book, The Outsider, which gave me my freedom. Thereupon, I moved down to Cornwall with my wife, Joy, whom I'd met by then. We proceeded to bring up a family, and that's what we've been doing ever since then. But I've had that freedom, and I've never ceased to be grateful and to be delighted to have that freedom, to be able to spend every day thinking and working. That's why I've written so much, of course.
Yes.
Because I spend all my time thinking and working.
And you, in that sense, have manifested your will. You put a intention out there, and you did it, so to speak. You didn't wait around for approval or anything else? Because as far as I understand it, then you did your work regardless if you already had a contract for it to be published, so to speak. You did it first, and then it was published, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but very often I've written a lot of books